Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.
An on-the-ground journalist testified in the Rittenhouse trial. In his eyewitness testimony, he described the defendant as a non-aggressor who even de-escalated a tense situation. But the prosecution suggested a possible bias in the witness. Here's the update.
The legal team defending Kyle Rittenhouse had professional commentator and journalist Frank Hernandez take the witness stand. Hernandez documented the Kenosha protests and riots on the day Rittenhouse shot 3 men, killing 2. He lent support to Rittenhouse's self-defense position, saying Joseph Rosenbaum lunged at the then 17-year-old before being shot.
Kyle is right at the corner, right there, the car source, and turns around, and Rosenbaum is lunging towards him very clearly, and Kyle fires.
And do you see that with your eyes?
Yes.
The witness also depicted the defendant as a de-escalator.
Did you observe him acting in an aggressive manner to anyone that you observed?
In no way, shape, or form. The first time I saw Kyle, he actually de-escalated a situation.
Did you observe him at any time that evening pointing his firearm at anybody or threatening anybody with that firearm?
No.
But prosecutor Thomas Binger suggested there was a potential bias in the witness.
You had indicated that you have provided with both the defense and the state with your full footage from the night of August 25th. Is that right?
Yes.
And you did that through an attorney from a law firm from Madison, correct?
Yes.
And that's an attorney whose firm is also providing services to the defendant in this case, correct?
Today is the first time I'm hearing of this, so I don't have any bias because I just heard about this today.
Former Milwaukee County Assistant DA Daniel Adams has called Binger's case incredibly underwhelming. Rittenhouse faces multiple charges, including 2 for first-degree murder and 1 for attempted murder. But Adams says he believes Binger will 100% ask the judge to add lower charges, most likely second-degree versions of the homicide and reckless endangerment counts. If, for example, second-degree murder is added, the jurors could convict Rittenhouse of this crime if they believe he acted in self-defense but used an unreasonable amount of force. Reporting by Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
And a 9th person has died from the stampede at the Astroworld Music Festival in Houston. The victim was critically injured at the event last Friday and taken to the hospital before she died. The 22-year-old was a college senior at Texas A&M University. Her family members told a local news outlet that the victim went to the festival with her cousin, but they became separated once the crowd began to surge. The music festival last Friday night drew a crowd of around 50,000 people. Soon after rapper Travis Scott made his entrance, there was a massive crowd surge near the main stage. In addition to the 9 deaths, hundreds were injured, and at least 2 are still in critical condition. Houston authorities are now leading a criminal investigation into the deaths. The world's largest carbon emitter, China, has promised to have 0 emissions by 2060. But some are questioning whether that's realistic for the country. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more on that.
And now we look at why many are questioning China's zero emissions promise. A financial service firm says this would require China to almost rebuild the way the economy is structured. Right now, almost 2/3 of the country's energy comes from coal. A report says for China to reach zero emissions by 2060, it would need to close about 600 coal-fired power plants. But the country is building them at a rate that outshines the rest of the world. With these plants, China added more than 3 times the coal power than the rest of the world added in the same amount of time. And it is planning to generate over 200 gigawatts more, with the new plants under construction. Currently, China is the world's biggest coal consumer, using more than half of the world's coal. And even for China, it took decades to reach this point. If we look at this data here, over the past several decades, despite other countries also increasing their coal consumption, none of their curves were as dramatic as China's. The nation more than doubled its coal consumption over the past 40 years. The trajectory it's on could be hard to stop. Earlier this year, China was tested on its coal resilience. Authorities there ordered coal mines to reduce production to cut emissions. But then a surge in energy demands met with low domestic coal supplies, and it led to a spike in coal prices. And as power companies can't raise energy prices until they get the authorities' approval, they produced less power so as to not lose money. This resulted in power outages in some regions, and China's northeast was hit particularly hard. In light of the power outages, the Chinese regime reopened some coal mines and ordered them to ramp up coal production. Products in China are getting more expensive. This could affect the whole world, especially the U.S., which is importing more from China than ever before. Chinese factory prices are rising at a record rate. Official numbers show producer prices up 13.5% on the year. That's the highest in 26 years. This as China is going through a power crunch, with coal prices soaring, pushing up energy costs for producers. Industries at the early stage of productions are feeling the most pain. For coal businesses, prices are more than double what they were a year ago. And prices in the oil and gas extraction industry rose 60%. Factory prices are the amounts that retailers pay to the manufacturer. And while retailers' prices may not be rising at the same rate as factory prices, they would still be affected.
Black Lives Matter is threatening riots and bloodshed in New York if the city returns to old ways of policing. That's after leaders of the organization met with Mayor-elect Eric Adams behind closed doors. NTD's Jim Battolini has more.
Hawk Newsom, co-founder of Black Lives Matter of Greater New York, promises rioting and bloodshed if Mayor-elect Eric Adams goes back to earlier policing methods, including anti-crime units. Newsom made the threats after meeting with the mayor-elect yesterday. Here's Newsom in this video captured by Scootercaster making the threat.
If they think that they're going to go back to the old ways of policing, then we're going to take to the streets again. There will be riots, there will be fire, and there will be bloodshed, because we believe in defending our people.
He says the group prays for peace, but prepares for the worst. Newsom said they won't go back to the days of being pulled over for no reason or policing methods like stop and frisk. Eric Adams agreed to meet with Hawk Newsom, his sister Shavona, and several others after they staged a small protest outside of Brooklyn Borough Hall. The meeting was live-streamed on Instagram by Alfred Martinez. The discussion centered on changes the group thinks are necessary in black neighborhoods, as well as policing in general in New York City. Things became heated after Newsom suggested Adams would be held accountable to a timeline to make changes. Here you can see Adams fire back at Newsom's demand.
But when you hold me accountable, I'm holding you accountable. You go on the ground, stop the violence in my community. I'm holding you accountable. Don't hold me accountable, because I'm not being the mayor, being the borough president, being the state senator. I put my body on the line for my community.
During the meeting, Newsom asked if NYPD would reinstate stop and frisk, which was curbed and reformed under Mayor Bill de Blasio. Adams, a former police captain, responded by saying that no one is going to abuse the people of New York City while he is mayor and get away with it. Jim Battolini, NTD News, New York.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is vowing to take action over the Biden administration sending illegal immigrants to Florida. He's offering to send them to President Biden's home state of Delaware instead.
DeSantis confirmed to reporters Wednesday that federal agents have been flying underage illegal immigrants to Jacksonville, Florida, after they are apprehended at the southern border, and that his state got to know about it only through leaked reports.
There's no notification to the state of Florida. These are done mostly in the middle of the night, and it's clandestine, and we really have no say into it.
The governor says this practice has been in place since May of this year and is still continuing. He's promising to take legal action against the Biden administration over this. He also proposed a plan of his own.
My view would be, why don't we, if they're going to come here, we'll provide buses and provide them. I will send them to Delaware and do that. I mean, if he's not going to support the border being secured, then he should be able to have everyone there.
This came just days after a 24-year-old illegal immigrant from Honduras who posed as a 17-year-old was arrested and charged with murder in Jacksonville.
We had somebody that was murdered by somebody that was brought in by Biden.
DeSantis accuses the federal government of abandoning its responsibility to secure the border.
If it's a federal responsibility, then they have a responsibility to discharge the duties and enforce the law. If they're not doing that, then clearly, I think a state should be able to come in and provide protections. And so that's what we're going to be looking to do.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki acknowledged these flights during a press briefing last month, saying it is our legal responsibility to safely care for unaccompanied children until they can be swiftly unified with a parent or a vetted sponsor. The New York Post reported last month that in addition to flights to Florida, federal agents have been flying illegal immigrants to Westchester, New York.
A California school district says it will not enforce the state's current COVID-19 vaccine mandate. Here's NTD's Eileen Ang with more details.
The Calaveras Unified School District Board of Trustees in Northern California voted 5-0 to not support, enforce, or comply with the governor's current vaccine mandate. It stated that the results apply to both students and staff. On October 1st, Governor Gavin Newsom mandated all students K-12 get the vaccine as soon as FDA approves the different age groups to get the shot. At the end of October, the FDA approved the Pfizer vaccine for children ages 5 to 11. Last week, the district released a statement acknowledging all the voices concerned about the mandates. They say they are aware of the potential impacts on the district in terms of possible liability exposure, funding loss, other forms of actions that can be taken against the district in response. It also states they understand that the superintendent recommends complying with the mandate, but the school district will stand by their decision. NTD reached out to the district and superintendent, but did not hear back by deadline. The district intends to discuss their next actions for masking and testing protocols on November 23rd. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
An NBA player speaks out to condemn Beijing's human rights abuses in Xinjiang and Hong Kong. When two NBA staff ask him to take off his Free Tibet shoes, they get a solid no.
Kanter ignited a firestorm by calling China's leader Xi Jinping a brutal dictator. The Boston Celtics player is using social media to get his messages to the masses. Beijing denies orchestrating any campaign against its Muslim minority, but the U.S. State Department estimates that up to 2 million Uyghurs have been held in detention camps.
I actually, learning from the first hand. I sit down with so many, concentration camp survivors, so many Hong Kongers and Tibetans and Taiwanese, and they were the one told me from first hand their story and what was happening there. I sit down with this concentration, camp survivor, and she was telling me about all the horrible act that they were doing in there, how many times that she has raped and tortured before, and she was telling me about the organ harvesting, and she was telling me about the surveillance cameras.
Kanter has also been wearing sneakers at games emblazoned with messages like freedom and no Beijing 2022 in opposition to the upcoming Olympics there. The backlash against his campaign was swift. China pulled Celtics games off its streaming service. The NBA says they've received many warnings and demands to ban Kanter.
I don't care if I get fined, I'm not going to take my shoes off. And they told me, we are not talking about fine, we are talking about getting banned. I'm like, listen, I don't care if whoever your boss is, go tell him I'm ready to get banned.
Kanter insists that he didn't break any rules and that it's his responsibility to speak up for those suppressed in China.
While Disney didn't have the greatest quarter, it did announce the Disney Metaverse. It gave few details, but it's something to look toward. NTD's Grace Coulter has more.
The Walt Disney Company has missed estimates across the board. In its earnings release, the company reported earnings per share of 37 cents, 27% lower than estimates of 51 cents. They also had revenue of $18.53 billion, around 1% lower than estimates of $18.79 billion. CEO Bob Chapek started off the earnings call reiterating Disney's strategic priorities.
First and foremost, telling the world's most original and enduring stories. Second, maximizing the synergy of our unique ecosystem to deepen consumers' connection to our characters and our stories. And lastly, using the power of our far-reaching platforms and new technologies to give consumers the best entertainment experience possible.
Disney Plus subscriber numbers were disappointing. They added 2.1 million, while analysts thought they would add 78% more, 9.4 million. Chapek says Disney will double the number of markets Disney Plus is in by fiscal year 2023, while putting out fresh content.
In total, we are nearly doubling the amount of original content from our marquee brands, Disney, Marvel, Pixar, Star Wars, and National Geographic, coming to Disney Plus in FY22, with the majority of our highly anticipated titles arriving July through September.
And Disney parks are seeing more business. All theme parks and cruise ships were open during the quarter. Disney said they spent $1 billion just to conform to the government virus regulations. Chapek also announced a big new Disney project. He said, "Our efforts to date are merely a prologue to a time when we'll be able to connect the physical and digital worlds even more closely, allowing for storytelling without boundaries in our own Disney metaverse."
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Don't forget to catch all of our programs on TV. NTD Evening News is on every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Find your local NTD channel at ntd.com/TV.